Hello, and thanks for joining us today. We hear all too often from website owners that the persons with disabilities market is a minority market. They frequently say they have no budget for making their websites, their kiosks, mobile applications, and their digital documents accessible to those with visual, hearing, cognitive, and physical impairments. This is the myth of the minority internet user. And within the next few minutes, you'll learn how this myth is busted, completely refuted by facts. And if your business is not accessible today, I encourage you to share this 10-minute video presentation with your leadership team. So let's get started. We'll start by defining the overall Internet user activity, both worldwide and within the United States. We'll compare the activity of people with disabilities to the non-disabled, including specifically how they access the Internet and what they're doing. Then we'll analyze the levels of education of both disabled men and women and their occupations. Much of this will come as a surprise to many of you. Finally, we'll detail the economics of the people with disabilities, their actual buying power. So let's get started. In 2019, there were 1.94 billion active websites worldwide, and 877 million, more than 45% of those worldwide active websites, were in the United States alone. But you may be thinking, how many internet users are accessing these websites? Let's see. Worldwide active internet users in 2019 reached 4 billion and forecasted to grow to 4.17 billion in 2020. The growth rate is decreasing as developing countries improve their infrastructure. More have access, leaving fewer stagnant areas. But how many of the 4 billion comprise the disabled? Let's see. In 2018, the Pew Research Center completed a study of the 63 million disabled active internet users in the United States. The study detailed the devices used to access the internet and compared the disabled to the non-disabled, as you can see. The study confirmed that multiple devices are used, and in many cases, a disabled user uses multiple devices over a daily period. The very clear takeaway is the disabled are very active on the internet. But, you may ask, are these working-aged women and men? And what are they doing? Let's take a look. Again, we rely on the Pew Research Center's study, and we learn that of the 63 million people with disabilities in the United States, 42.2 million are of working age. So that means 18 to 64 years old. We also note that the technology adoption rate of the disabled lags the non-disabled, and we conclude that this is directly related to the disproportionate number of non-accessible websites, which in turn defines a very clear opportunity for website owners that make their digital properties accessible. Now let's look at the education and vocation of the disabled women and men. Looking at the left chart, which details the occupations of people with disabilities with master's degrees, which was compiled by the Academy of Arts and Sciences in their Humanities Indicators study, we see the breakdown of both men and women. We see concentrations in teaching, both post-secondary and pre-collegiate, in management, in sales, in administration, and more. Looking to the right, we see people with disabilities of all education backgrounds in all occupations, including service, production, construction, and more. The key takeaway is the disabled are employed in most every occupation, and they influence their respective corporate buying power as well. So now let's take a look at the breakdown of the disability categories. Of the 63 million disabled in the United States, 25.5 million are physically impaired. As an example, this would include those with the inability to navigate a website with a conventional mouse, along with those with mobility impairments. 15.8 million have cognitive disabilities, including attention deficit disorder, dyslexia with difficulty reading, dyscalculia having difficulty with math, and learning disabilities in general. 13.3 million have hearing impairments, which makes it difficult or impossible to benefit from audio or video content without transcripts and captions. 8.4 million have visual impairments, making it difficult or impossible to benefit from pictures, graphics, or video, as well as simply navigating a website. The key takeaway here is the impaired user is able to consume your content and act on your call of action only if your digital property is accessible. Let's now put the disabled user into economic context. In this study by the World Bank and the Center for Disease Control, we see the worldwide Internet user by country with hearing and vision impairments broken out for the USA only. If we look at the orange bar in the center of your screen, the USA vision impaired, we see that just the USA vision impaired users are equal in size to the entire Canadian Internet user base, or the entire Italy or Mexican user base. Similarly, the hearing impaired in the US is about the size of all Internet users in South Korea. And if we combine the US hearing and visually impaired, it compares to the entire German user base. Consider that many companies have dedicated resource, including budgets and sometimes subsidiaries, to capture the markets in Italy and Canada and Germany, to name a few. And one must wonder why the same isn't true for the disabled community. We're well on our way to bust that myth. So let's look at the USA Disabled Internet Access and see what they're doing. Here we can see the internet access of people with disabilities compared to the non-disabled. They track fairly well, with the exception of, you may think, the work category. However, based on a study by Accenture in 2018, the non-disabled are 61% more employed than the disabled. So mathematically, the work access tracks pretty well. Now, let's look at what they're doing. Again, comparing the people with disabilities with the non-disabled, we learn that both are doing just about everything. They're emailing, texting, consuming content and information, shopping, banking, and more. So if your business is active in any of these categories, your website, your mobile applications, kiosk, and your documents must be accessible to benefit from the people with disabilities market. So let's take a look at the buying power of people with disabilities and learn just how large the market is that you may be missing. Let's break down the personal buying power of the disabled community into disposable income, which is income less taxes, and the more important piece, discretionary income, which is what a household or individual has to invest, save, or spend after taxes and necessities like food and shelter are paid. The disabled disposable income of $490 billion is less than the African American and Hispanic communities. But the key buying power index is discretionary income. The disabled discretionary income of $21 billion is 2 times larger than the African American and Hispanic market combined. We should note that many corporations have dedicated teams and marketing budgets for the Hispanic and African American communities, which have 2 times less buying power. That's why the smart companies are waking up to the substantial economic opportunity to improve their brand, bolster their corporate responsibility by being accessible, and of course, added customers and added revenue. So I think you now agree that the myth of the minority internet user is completely and totally busted. 63 million educated disabled users with 21 billion in discretionary income to spend, 2 times more than the Hispanic and African American market combined. But your digital properties have to be accessible, and they should be. It's the law defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And with accessibility lawsuits up 188%, being accessible will prevent a potentially costly legal action. Thank you for your investment of time. We at the Bureau of Internet Accessibility have analyzed more than 51,000 websites for accessibility since 2001. So please get in touch if you'd like us to help you on your road to accessibility. Thank you.